Привет! Before we start with a new topic, let's quickly recap the previous one. Let's imagine you are in a Russian-speaking country and you need to explain something in English. How would you start a conversation? You would say, «Извините, вы говорите по-английски?» Ну, немного. What does it mean? Right, it means I do speak English, but a little bit. Нет, я не говорю по-английски. Я говорю только по-русски и немного по-немецки. What does that mean? It means I don't speak English, I only speak Russian and a little German. If you're having troubles with this, you might want to revisit the previous lesson. Today, we'll talk about conjugating verbs. Actually, it's one of the easiest things in learning Russian, and one of the most rewarding too, because it allows you to start speaking and expressing yourself. In Russian, there are three tenses: present, past, and future. We'll start with the present. The present tense describes an action that is either happening now at this very moment or happens regularly in the present time. Verbs in the present tense change their endings depending on a persona: I, you, we, they, and so on. This process is called conjugation. And it also exists in other languages too, like in Spanish, French, or Italian. So, first of all, we'll need to know Russian personal pronouns. Here they are. Repeat after me. Я, ты, он, она, оно. Nouns in Russian have genders: masculine, feminine, or neuter. And it doesn't matter whether it is a person or just an object in your room, you will call them as he, she, or it. For example, a table in Russian is стол. It's masculine, so it is a he, он. An arm is рука. It's feminine, so it's она. The sun, солнце, is neuter, so it's оно. Alright, let's move on. Мы, вы, они. And one more time from the beginning. Я, ты, он, она, оно. Мы, вы, они. Great job! Now try to read them on your own. Perfect! Now I'll give you a couple of examples of how you conjugate a verb in Russian. And we'll also talk about how you can make this process of conjugation automatic in your head, so that you don't need to think about it when speaking Russian. And in the description, I'll also share a site where you can check conjugations of Russian verbs. If you open a dictionary to look for a verb, you will find it in the infinitive form. What is it? Infinitive form is a form of a verb before any changes. In English, it sounds as to talk, to look, to listen. In Spanish, it is hablar, mirar, escuchar, or in Italian, it would be parlare, guardare, ascoltare. In Russian, verbs in the infinitive form end with t. For example, говорить, смотреть, слушать. So, if you see a verb ending with t, you know it's an infinitive form. Now, let's conjugate the verb говорить. Я говорю. Ты говоришь. Он говорит. Она говорит. Мы говорим. Вы говорите. Они говорят. There is a part of this verb that doesn't change, and its endings depend on a persona who is speaking. Я, ты, он, она, and so on. Я говорю по-русски. Он говорит по-английски. Ты говоришь по-английски. Нет, я не говорю по-английски. Now, let's compare the conjugation of the verb говорить to the verbs слушать and слышать. Я говорю. Я слушаю. Take into account that it's important to pronounce both vowels at the end. Я слушаю. Я слышу. Ты говоришь. Ты слушаешь. Ты слышишь. Он говорит. Он слушает. Он слышит. Она говорит. Она слушает. Она слышит. Мы говорим. Мы слушаем. Мы слышим. Вы говорите. Вы слушаете. Вы слышите. Они говорят. Они слушают. Они слышат. So, you can see that when you say я, a verb would end with you or u, and both belong to the same pair of vowels. That's why it's so helpful to learn Russian vowels in pairs. If a verb ends with sh, you know that it's the ты form. For мы, verbs would end with m. For вы, they end with те. The biggest difference, which is not even that big, will be with the third persona in the plural form, они. You can also see that you spell ye in some endings, and in others you spell e. It's important for the right spelling, but guess what? In most cases, it sounds the same. Ты говоришь, ты слушаешь, ты слышишь. Он говорит, он слушает, он слышит. Мы говорим, мы слушаем, мы слышим. Вы говорите, вы слушаете, вы слышите. If you're a beginner in Russian, the first thing that you should do is look for and understand the patterns in conjugating verbs in Russian. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Be more afraid of not speaking at all. At the same time, it's important to make this process of conjugation automatic in your head so that you don't need to think about an appropriate form when speaking Russian. And for that, I strongly recommend you the following technique. Read the conjugation of a new verb together with personal pronouns 3 to 5 times. don't strive to memorize it, just read it thoughtfully, paying attention to the patterns. Then close the conjugation and try to write it down by memory. After you are done, compare what you've written to the right conjugation. Take notes of your mistakes, if you made any, and do it once again. Once you feel familiar with this verb, move on to the next one. Do the same thing. When you feel confident with it, try to write down the conjugations of both of these verbs, and so on. Pay special attention to the stress in verbs, because sometimes it jumps from one part of the verb to another, like in the verb смотреть. You say «я смотрю», but ты смотришь, он смотрит. And till the rest of the conjugation, the emphasis is on the first syllable. Also, try to not confuse the verbs слушать and слышать, which is a common mistake of many Russian learners. They would say «я слышаю» instead of «я слышу», or «я слушаю» instead of «я слушаю». In the description, I'll share the site where you can find the correct conjugation for Russian verbs. It's important to not force yourself to memorize conjugations, to stay motivated. It's important to read them carefully and thoughtfully to keep yourself focused. And it's important to write them down on paper with your own hand, because with that, you're also activating your motor memory. And the good news is that when you're making mistakes, you're actually also helping yourself, because you're engaging your emotions, and they let you remember things even better. So welcome your mistakes. That's it for today. Let me know how you are doing with conjugations. Пока! Скоро увидимся!